Hi everyone. Today Diana and Samantha will be doing a presentation about modernism. What is modernism? Modernism is a philosophical movement that started from a wide-scale transformation in the Western society during the late 1990s and the early 20th centuries. Modernism includes the activities and creations of those who felt that the traditional forms of art, architecture, literature, and culture were becoming outdated in the new economical, social, and political environment of a fully emerging industrialized world. The Modernism period has two distinct periods, which is during the World War I and after the World War I and II. So, in the first period, the explosion of modernism took place between 1910 to 1930. First, let's talk about Pablo Picasso. He was the most dominant and influential artist of the first half of the 20th century, involved himself mostly with pioneering Cubism. And alongside George Braque, he also invented collage and made major contributions to symbolism and surrealism. He saw himself above all as a painter, yet his sculpture was greatly influential, and he also explored areas as diverse as printmaking and ceramics. Moving on to the second period, which took place between 1930 to 1945. Piet Mondrian, one of the founders of the Dutch modern movement style, is recognized for the purity of his abstractions and methodical practice by which he arrived at them. He radically simplified the elements of his paintings to reflect what he saw as the spiritual order underlying the visible world, creating a clear, universal aesthetic language within his canvases. In his best-known paintings from the 1920s, Mondrian reduced his shapes to lines and rectangles and his palette to fundamental basics, pushing past references to the outside world toward pure abstraction. His use of asymmetrical balance and a simplified pictorial vocabulary were crucial in the development of modern art, and his iconic abstract works remain influential in design and familiar in popular culture to this day. Modernism in architecture. The modernism style could be identified by the minimalistic design, its lack of ornamentation, the use of new materials like reinforced concrete, steel, and glass, and lastly the layout of an open floor plan and flat roofs. Other modernists, especially those involved in design, had more pragmatic views. Modernist architects and designers believed that new technology rendered old styles of building obsolete. Le Corbusier thought that buildings should function as machines for living in, analogous to cars, which he saw as machines for traveling in. Just as cars had replaced the horse, so modernist design should reject the old styles and structures inherited from ancient Greece or from the Middle Ages. Following this machine aesthetic, modernist designers typically reject decorative motifs in design, preferring to emphasize the materials used in pure geometrical forms. Modernist design of houses and furniture also typically emphasized simplicity and clarity of form, open-plan interiors, and the absence of clutter. Modernism reversed the 19th century relationship of public and private. In the 19th century, public buildings were horizontally expansive for a variety of technical reasons, and private buildings emphasized verticality, to fit more private space on more and more limited land. Modernism particularly inspired fine art. It saw a break in the world of the ism. These art styles include Impressionism, Cubism, Fauvism, Futurism, Brutalism, and Surrealism. With the influence making such an impact across multiple creative disciplines, modernism is arguably being the most influential movement of the 20th century. Now, about modernism in literature. Modernist literature was a predominantly English genre of fiction writing, popular from roughly the 1910s into the 1960s. Modernist literature came into its own due to increasing industrialization and globalization. New technology and the horrifying events of both world wars, but specifically World War I, made many people question the future of humanity. Now, on modernism's goals. The Glass Palace, 1935, in the Netherlands. Functional and open, many modernists believed that by rejecting tradition they could discover radically new ways of making art. Arnold Schoenberg believed that by rejecting traditional tonal harmony, the hierarchical system of organizing works of music which had guided music making for at least a century and a half, and perhaps longer, he had discovered a wholly new way of organizing sound, based on the use of 12-note rows. This led to what is known as serial music by the post-war period. Influences in music. Schopenhauer's ideas had an influence on Richard Wagner and Nikolai Rimsky-Korsakov, the two composers most responsible for the development of modernism in music. Rimsky-Korsakov served as the personal instructor of Igor Stravinsky, whose Rites of Spring stands as one of the most recognizable modernist compositions. Stravinsky also acknowledged the importance of Wagner, whose bombastic operas embodied the concept of the total work of art.